Hi, I'm Robby B, adult child and para-alcoholic. The topic of this video is my third year in ACA. In year one, I read the Big Red Book cover to cover and attended weekly meetings. This helped me to understand the ACA program and to feel part of the fellowship. It also provided the foundation to build my ACA recovery. In my second year, I worked the yellow STEPS workbook. The steps, of course, are the backbone of any 12-step fellowship, and ACA is no different, except ACA's STEPS workbook includes inner child work, grief work, and family of origin work, not to mention 2 sets of steps, the standard AA steps as well as the Tony A steps, aimed at healing the emotional wounds of the inner child. It runs much deeper than other programs. For more detail on my first 2 years, please watch the prior videos in this series. With that said, let's move on to the meat and potatoes. What I did and what I learned in my third year in ACA, which began with the decision and commitment to work the laundry list workbook. The laundry list, of course, outlines the common characteristics of an adult child. They're also referred to as the 14 traits. These traits are referred to in step 1. We admitted we were powerless over the effects of alcoholism or other family dysfunction, and that our lives had become unmanageable. And what are the effects? According to ACA, the effects are the 14 traits. In other words, we admit that we are powerless over the laundry list, and the laundry list makes our lives unmanageable. This could be further broken down, trait by trait. We admitted we were powerless over trait 1, and our lives had become unmanageable. We admitted we were powerless over trait 2, and our lives had become unmanageable. Of course, these could be expanded as follows. We admitted we were powerless over the need to isolate, as well as our fear of people and authority figures, or we admitted we were powerless over the need for external approval to the point of losing our identity, and our lives had become unmanageable. You can do the same with all the traits. If we did that, step 1 would be very long indeed. The shorthand is simply, we admitted we were powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism and that our lives had become unmanageable. However, it helps to understand exactly what that shorthand means, what it represents. While the STEPS workbook touches on the traits, it does not provide a deep dive into them. How can it? That requires its own workbook, the laundry lists workbook. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, the title of the workbook is not the laundry list workbook, but rather laundry lists, plural. That's because there are a total of 4 laundry lists. Most people are familiar with the original laundry list that Tony A wrote in 1978, which is read at most readings. This includes the familiar traits such as we became isolated, we became approval seekers, we are afraid of angry people, and so on. At a later point in time, the fellowship created a list that mirrors the original list that's titled the other laundry list. This is when the adult child becomes the perpetrator, as it were. For example, when we go from being afraid of angry people to becoming the angry person who then intimidates others. And finally, there is the flip side of the laundry list and the flip side of the other laundry list, which offers a glimpse of what recovery looks like for both the laundry list and other laundry list. I call these the recovery traits. If this sounds like a lot of work, it is. If it sounds complicated, it is. Nothing is simple in ACA. However, I got through it pretty easily. It just takes time and patience. I did the work with the same group that I worked the steps with. so that really helped. Also, the step work provides a good foundation for doing the trait work. In fact, ACA recommends working the steps prior to working the traits. By the way, it took my group 9 months to work the steps. It took us 14 months to work the traits. What did I get from doing the work? A deeper understanding of each of the traits. Not just what they mean, but how they operate inside of me. I better understand how they were created, what triggers them, how they show up in terms of feelings and behaviors, and how they make my life unmanageable. It also made me see how the traits are interconnected, how they support each other. In my experience, the traits are like a pack of wolves. They don't operate in isolation. For a deeper dive into the traits themselves, please see my 14-part series titled The Laundry List. This looks at the traits individually and also the relationship among them. I also put out a 4-part series titled 12 Ways to Look at the 14 Traits, which looks at the traits from different angles. And finally, a single video titled The Cartman Drama Triangle. This triangle is introduced in the beginning of the workbook, but they barely mention it, which is unfortunate because it really helps to better understand the traits. You can think of it as yet another way to look at them, through the lens of the drama triangle. Anyway, the video explains it and recommends a great book for those who want to dig deeper into it. And perhaps the most important thing I learned from doing this work was how self-love is the antidote for each of the traits. I like that. 14 traits, 28 if you include the other laundry list, and one solution. This may seem simple and easy, but it's not. Asking an adult child to love themselves is like asking them to climb Mount Everest, blindfolded and barefoot. Now, the workbook does offer us ways to do this, but to actually do it requires yet another workbook, the Loving Parent Guidebook, which I did in my 4th year. This will be the topic of the next video. And that wraps up this video, which was meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robby Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.